Just saying, I've frequently been asked to be the after lunch guy. I don't know if it's my winning personality and really awful sense of humor, but the during lunch guy, this is a first for me, so should be fun. I promise I'm not going to talk to you about freight invoices. If you lost sleep and you need to talk about something like that, let me know, and we can chat about it later. What I am going to start talking about is, as an executive, how can you start thinking about using AI? And I'm assuming most people are at this point, but how do you start thinking about using it? What are some of the shortcomings? What are some of the limitations you're going to run into? And what are some of the pitfalls you really need to avoid? And some very tactical things that you can start doing right now. I want to start by giving a full admission. I am not an early adopter. I was really comfortable with my BlackBerry. I was really comfortable with my old F-150. Like, I don't go and buy the latest and greatest things. As the CEO of the company, it's my job to make sure that whatever we are using works and works consistently. So anything I'm going to tell you is not like, go use the latest and greatest thing, it's going to be great, because I don't do that myself. So let's start with sort of 3 key things that you have to be able to do. Number 1, in the world today, you have to understand how to ask the right questions. So for those of you, I guess show of hands, how many people have Claude or ChatGPT on your desktop today? Okay, how many of you, keep your hands in the air, how many of you have done it legally through IT, like an enterprise agreement, or you have your own app that you've just installed? All right, so like 50-50 kind of, yeah. By the way, we look for the people who did it inappropriately, and then we go give them the appropriate assets and encourage them to do more, because we're like, hey, good job. But one of the first things you'll notice is that how you ask questions and how you train any of those systems is really the difference between winning and losing. Most of the time, they're wrong the first time. So I do like the understanding the question is half the answer. The second one deals with the underlying data. Most of the time, the shortcomings you have are the information that you have fed to it. And we'll talk about this in a minute, but logistics and supply chain as a whole went through this long process of best of breed. I'm going to get the best application for this specific thing. The problem with that is that the outcomes and the outputs from all those software, you are now responsible for normalizing it, creating, cleansing it, doing all of that work before you can actually make use of it. The last one is getting super comfortable with failure. We have a saying in our company, which is we live out on the short branches, and if you're out on the short branches, they're going to break, and if when they break, you beat the snot out of your people and yell at them, they are never going to go out there again. They're going to grab the trunk and be super safe. I think it was Edison who says, I know 2,500 ways not to build a light bulb. Okay? This is going to happen. I use Claude on a daily basis. We have an enterprise version of Claude. I put data into it. I am constantly thinking about different ways to figure out customer health, to figure out operational integrity, to look at fraud, to look at anything, and start to get better sense of it. Every time I load a data set into it and I ask it a question, it gets it wrong the first time, the second time, the third time, and about the 5th or 6th time when I've created enough guardrails, I get the right data. I get the right output. So just understand what you are being asked to do today is not easy. The market is also conspiring against you. I had a really fun conversation with a guy the other day. He looks at me and he goes, I mean, when we get through this, and he was talking about what's going on with Iran, he goes, well, I mean, when we get through this, and I was like, dude, when we got through COVID, then when we got through this, like it's never when we get through this. There's going to be some strike somewhere. There's going to be something that goes on, okay? 2 and 3, data quality and stagnant technology. I was shocked to find that EDI is still the standard. Like when I got into this space, and I was talking to people about how they transact with their trading partners, and they said EDI. I'm like, no, that was like 1963. No joke. I think 1963 is when it came out. Called some of my friends at Deloitte, and they said, on average, it takes like 72 days to onboard EDI. I'm going, 72 days? Like I came from APIs, and like this is ridiculous. But sure enough, that's where it's at. And then the last one of rising cost and compliance. I don't care who you are at any given moment, some new government is going to tell you some new regulation is out there, and some other person is going to show up with some new accessorial fee. I will tell you in 3 years, my favorite one so far was the container accessorial fee. And I was like, let me get this straight. You don't have enough containers? Like, okay. So these things are constantly going to be out there. The only thing I'm going to say about freight audit and pay is that if you still look at this today as a function of making sure invoices get paid on time or paid correctly, you have missed the boat by a long shot. Okay? There's a huge opportunity that sits inside of what exists in those invoices. What you should be getting out of it is optimization work. You should be able to figure out how to optimize networks and do this quite easily, by the way, as there's no great rocket science. All right. So I'm going to get into some case studies, but you have to understand the difference between two concepts. There's a system of work and a system of record. Okay, a system of record, you can run the same report over and over and over again, and it never changes. An ERP is not going to change. If you run a report in an ERP about what happened and you get a different result tomorrow, there's probably some fraud going on. So ERPs generally are not a place where you're going to see change. TMSs, system of work. Run a report today, run a report tomorrow, you're going to get something slightly different, right? But this is what's supposed to happen. Okay, visibility platforms like Project 44, I think they're here. This is what's happening currently, correct? An ERP is basically who I paid and how much I paid, but it's not a lot of details. It's not a great place to go get information. The last one is what actually took place. So this is what used to be freight audit, okay? It has since transformed into this whole transportation performance and expense management. Understanding what actually happened is critical to understanding what's coming next, how to optimize, et cetera, okay? So let's look at the existing architecture, and if you guys see this and you start to recognize it, you'll start to understand why getting information is so difficult. So what I tend to see in the market, and when I'm talking to clients, is I got somebody that does, in freight audit, I got somebody that does parcel, I got somebody else that does ocean, I got somebody that does Europe for me, I got somebody that does Latin America, I got somebody else that does North America, and they're all super good at it, okay? The problem is, I've also got all these other software systems, and I got multiple TMSs, and I got all these things, and then what I really need, and I'm super excited about, is when the business shows up and they say, hey, I need some information from you. So the two places the CFO gets fired, statement of cash flows. I know this because I used to run North America for Workiva, okay? The second one is accruals in a supply chain. You want to get fired as a CFO, those are two great places to go look. This whole layer of ingestion, consolidation, and normalization really looks more like this. Okay? I don't know where I'm getting this from. I've talked to a bunch of CFOs who are apoplectic about the fact that they can't get this information. I actually sat in the room with one of the world's largest automotive manufacturers. The gentleman that ran supply chain was here. The CFO was there, and he said, what are we going to do to reduce our overall costs? And they had a big urgency around it. The guy looks at him, he goes, ship less. I thought he was kidding. I came back about a month later, there was a new head of supply chain. Okay? That's not a joke. Literally, new guy is sitting there a month later, and I went, oh, so you need a different answer, is what I'm hearing. Okay? This architecture is inconsistent with anything that would be related to delivering a business service. It would be so hard for you to figure out how to normalize data coming out of these platforms, figure out how to make it consistent, enrich it. I mean, the cost to do it would just be astronomical. Okay? When what you really need is you need something that's sitting right there. You need something that is one place where all your trading partners are submitting their information. You need one location where you can submit information. What you have to start understanding is you have data consumers, you have data consolidation points, okay, and then you have data contributors. And effectively, if you can get to here, you will start to get some serious results. And it's not that hard, by the way, to get to here. Okay, so I'm going to give you 4 case studies of people that are doing this today with us and questions that they had for us. One of the things I love to do is I'll go to executives, I'll go to somebody who runs global logistics operations for a gigantic Fortune 500, Global 500 company and say, what's one question you can't get answered today? And these are my customers, okay? This was one that came out, one of the largest industrial manufacturing companies. You have the head of procurement, you have the head of logistics operations. Head of procurement says, I need to create working capital. That means I need longer DPO, and I'm going to use supply chain financing to do it. Head of logistics operations says, I got to move stuff from A to B. And if it doesn't move from A to B, I get fired. Okay? And I'm getting really awful performance out of certain modes. So we said, great. Within about 15 minutes, we had a benchmark for them for DPO, and we had analyzed a bunch of different metrics, and we just came back. It literally took us about 15 minutes, and we said, well, it turns out, which lanes are you having, or which modes are you having problems with? And the logistics operations person said, those ones. And they said, well, it's interesting because the market shifted. You've got really long DPO. You've got really long payment terms in some of these areas, and they may just be not wanting to work with you because they don't take them forever to get paid. Okay? We also looked at their rates, came back, and it turns out they were out of line with market. Well, good news, you actually have some opportunity to go improve in some other areas. So some other areas got better for you, some other areas got worse. We're not a consulting firm. I'm not going to come to you and tell you exactly how to go do this. Okay? There are great companies out there like Deloitte. There are great companies like NTT that bought Chainalytics. I think Envision is here. There's a lot of great companies that can help you with this kind of stuff. But the reality is this one's pretty easy. Go back and offer up to exchange this for something else. Maybe you get better rates. Maybe you get some better account coverage. Maybe there's something you're going to trade for this. Just don't give it up. And so they went out. They don't have to run a 6-month RFP. This isn't like we're going to go out and do this whole gigantic, massive, monolithic amount of work. No, just go talk to the people you're working with. Do you like them? Yeah, we've worked with them for a long time. Great. Really simple renegotiation. This one was really funny. One of the world's largest consumer technology companies. How many times a day am I shipping the same size package from a location to a location all over the world? I got 500 distribution centers. I said, okay, great. Or 500 distribution points. And I said, you can't get that answer? You got a consolidator. You got 3PLs. And he looks at me and he goes, and you know as well as I do, I ain't getting that from them. And I said, okay, great. Again, about 20 minutes later, sent him a report. There were hundreds of these charts all over the place. Okay? And he looks at me and he goes, so what you're telling me is thousands of times a day, I'm sending the same size package from this location to that location. And I said, yeah, I don't think it's your consolidator, though. I don't think it's your 3PL. I think it's you. And he goes, oh, you'd be right. We think we're doing what's great for the customer. You order, picking it right now. Why don't you just wait 24 hours? Turns out the distance between those two, it constantly takes you 1 day. Whether you ship it ground or otherwise, it's only taking you 1 day to get from there to the, so it doesn't matter, just give them a day. Like nobody's that upset about this, right? He goes, it's gonna be $4 to $7 million in cost ripped out of every one of our distribution points if I make that change. I'm like, that's awesome. He goes, our impression of this is we were doing what was right by the customer. It turns out we were pissing them off because now they're getting 5 packages and our retail partner has to consolidate all those packages, so we shifted our cost onto them and they're super mad at us, and now I know why. Big med tech company was trying to figure out, I've got these customers located all over the world. Okay. Should I charge them more for shipping? And when should I think about charging you more for shipping? So imagine you're the logistics operations guy. You're about to go to the sales team and go, I'm going to give you a way to generate more revenue. Like, how cool would that be? So they had 2 big questions. He talked about out of range. What does out of range even mean? Like, is Alaska out of range or is South Dakota out of range? Like, Saskatchewan? So the first question is, what's out of range? The second one is, at what point should we have a surcharge? So again, it doesn't take long. We come back and we say, your sort of Maginot line, your, whatever you call it, your Mendoza line is right here. Okay, at this point, it appears that these companies are just out of range. And it was like Anchorage, Alaska. We sort of just looked at different regions, right, from distribution center. What I don't know is who these clients are. I don't have access to your CRM, so I don't know who they are, but I know that you're constantly shipping stuff to them. I also don't, I can see the volume of shipments, but I don't know what the value of the asset is, so I don't know what the profitability of the customer is. That data lives somewhere else. What I can tell you is the cost to get this stuff there is astronomical in comparison to what you pay elsewhere. So these would be good places to look. And the last one. Similar industry, so MedTech, was curious about which carriers. So there's a lot of regulation in sort of who they can use. So you can't just go to anybody on the street. What he was trying to figure out is, where do I get the best performance? So we have a concept called the Trax Performance Index. It's unique to you, okay? I can tell you who the fastest, cheapest, best quality is, lowest emissions. What I can't tell you is what matters to you. So you have to tell me. And that changes over time. One of our largest clients, emissions was like their #1 driver of everything. And then one day I showed up and their head of global logistics says, hey, I have good news. Cost is now #1. Okay? The performance index changes. We have 12,000 carriers that are sitting inside the Trax Logistics network. You want to know who's out there, who's going to meet your needs the best? Turns out, once we figure out what your business initiatives are and what your goals are, that index gets structured in such a way that tells you who are the best. Who are the people? In this case, you've got 4 carriers that are knocking it out of the park for this lane. You've got 4 others that aren't that great. They don't seem to be meeting your need. Great, you want to go through a carrier consolidation? It doesn't have to be forever. It's just for now, whatever your business issue is, these seem to be the 4 that are going to generate the best returns for you. By the way, if it changes over time, something changes at that carrier, it will show up. All right, so now when they come in and you're having this conversation with them, you are armed with better data than they have. And I've sat in enough executive meetings to know that when my vendors come in and they have better data than I have, I don't feel very good. I don't like that. Okay? I want to know more about what they're doing so I can be more helpful, more productive, more what have you. Okay? All right. Action plan. Okay? The first thing I would tell anybody is if you're still using multiple freight auditors around the world, stop. Go find somebody. Here's some 4 great requirements to just ask them. Can you handle all currencies and countries? Can you handle all modes? Do you have some ability to normalize the data and extract it so I can push it into other avenues? We have companies like Dell, Pfizer. They have 15, 17 different feeds coming out of our platform to different areas of their company, whether it's procurement or one of them called it the data swamp, which I thought was really funny. Like, we're going to push this into the data lake. And he goes, no, it's the data swamp. It's starting to get murky in there. I don't know what's in there. And the ability to surface insights. Somebody should be able to tell you when anomalistic behavior shows up, right? You get some new person that shows up and they're just automatically approving exceptions. You're going to want to see that. That could cost you millions of dollars. All of a sudden, a 1-pound package became a 72-pound package. We saw it within minutes. Fired off a note to our client, and they went, oh, man. Of course, UPS assured them we don't measure any of these things, so we trust your data when it comes in. Anything like that, any avenue you can get from that. And there's probably a handful of these companies out in the world. Clearly, we're one of them, just to be clear. The second thing is integrating. What you don't want to do is just start putting systems together. Okay? Do not call IT and say, I need to start integrating all of these systems. Start with a question. What's the questions you want to ask? And the best way to do this is figure out who your consumers are. You're one of them. Finance is probably another one. Accounting is probably another one. What questions do they have? Right? And remember back at the beginning, a well-structured question gets you halfway there. So if we start with the question, maybe you go to accounting and they go, we want to figure out what's been shipped, not billed not paid, paid closed, and we need to know at 5 p.m. on the 30th of the month. Awesome, that's a great question. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to need TMS data and I'm going to need freight audit data. Okay, cool, so I got to find a way to get ASN information down into my freight audit system. Okay, great, that's not that hard. What other questions exist out there? Okay, at that point, it turns out some of your architecture can be pretty simple to start to pitch together. Okay. The last one is adapt and advance. I talked about this at the beginning. Don't be afraid of failure. I, as the leader of the company, am constantly telling people, if you're not failing, you're not trying. Okay? I fail routinely. I told you guys at the very beginning, I have Claude on my desktop. Trust me, my IT team has governed it to no end. And they know, like, Tablak will do all kinds of things if we let him, so we got to put some guardrails around him. Every time I try something, it fails. And it fails, and it fails, and it fails until finally I get it right. And at that point, then, I'm going to go talk to other people in the organization. Everybody on your team should have the same experience, you included. Just start trying things, start looking at data, start loading data sets, start asking questions, figure out how you get to the answer, and then go backwards and keep updating and adapting, okay? So let's look at a really real-life example. These are all the questions, by the way, that were in those slides. So when I said start with the questions, start with the questions. What questions do you have? So if these are the questions, and these are the questions our customers are asking, what would I need? So the first thing you need, obviously, is a consolidated freight audit and payment. I have great news. I know a company. They're super rad. But then I don't have all the information in there. Now, really important to understand where and when to consolidate. You'll notice one of these questions up here is which customers should I be charging more to, but there's not an icon that says CRM. You never want to push unrelevant data into a platform that's not designed to handle it. I would never tell you to push your CRM data into my platform. I'm designed for logistics. I'm designed for logistics operations. I'm designed for logistics procurement. I'm designed for logistics finance. Any relevant data that looks like that, you can push into my platform and I can give you a result. Start pushing CRM data into it, start pushing demand data into it, I don't know what to do with it. Okay, so there's a reality of what you should and should not push into. In my case, I'm the consolidator here because it makes sense. I've got the logistics data that's coming in from different platforms. Awesome, so I can consolidate it down to here. Okay, that's great, I know who the data providers are. I also know who the consumers are. In this case, most of the questions deal with accounting, finance, procurement, and operations. I'm constantly going back to those people to ask, now that I've answered this question, what else do you have? Okay, I'm going to take a little sidetrack here. For those of you who are worried that AI is going to get rid of every job on the planet, please take a deep breath. I promise you it's not. And I know this because I run a company that has an infinite appetite for innovation and demand. So once you figure out how to do something faster, my 10-year plan became a 5-year plan. But you know what didn't happen? I didn't come up with less ideas. My 5-year plan became a 1-year plan last year, which means I needed a new 5-year plan. You can ask my engineering team. You can ask my sales team. You can ask anybody. We don't have a finite amount of innovation or demand that is going to come out of our minds. As humans, we constantly want the next thing. So when I look at this, what ultimately happens is you've delivered something to operations. You deliver something to accounting. You know what they're going to want? More. Well, you can do that. What about this? Okay. Oh, you can do that? Can you do this? The answer is always, I mean, I can try. Like, I can try and get it to you. And again, you'll go back to that original cycle of, I got it wrong, I got it wrong, I got it wrong. Oh, look, I got it right. I put the right guardrails in place. I asked the right question. I got the right answer. This, you want to become insatiable to the business. You want to become the most critical part of the business, be able to answer questions for people and be able to surface information they otherwise didn't have. I answer to somebody. I have a boss. That boss is called my board of directors. I have a chairman who is ruthless. He's a wonderful guy, but he's got a lot of questions. And I have become irreplaceable to him because I bring things to him first. I feel this way. Anybody who reports to me on my executive staff, anybody who reports to them, the people I can't live without are the ones who are super curious, who are out there trying to figure things out. Those are the ones I can't live without. And they provide me with information I didn't know. You don't have to wait anymore. Like, this data is out there. There's super easy ways to get to it. You could log into my platform and start asking it questions. You don't need to know how to build a data pipeline. You don't need to know how to structure data. Just start asking it questions. What did I pay FedEx last year in freight versus accessorials? How did I break that down? Okay. You can ask whatever question you want and get an answer and start being that person that supplies that information. This is one example, and it didn't take 15 engineers to put this together. Okay. So I'll close with this. We return huge value for our clients. This is a huge focus of mine. I've lived in this space for 30 years. I've been in enterprise technology. And my whole goal for anything that we do with a client is they can put a number on it at the end of the day. They can walk up in front of their boss and say, look what I've done. Underneath these numbers, by the way, there's tons of data, there's tons of information, there's tons of other things. But this is what we are trying to do for you. We every day want to show up and ask you, what's the question you can't answer? And we want to go answer that question for you. So with that, and I got 7 minutes left, but nobody wants to delay getting to lunch. So